Gross Admiral Erich Johann Albert Raeder was a naval leader in Germany who played a major role in the naval history of World War II. Raeder led the Kriegsmarine for the first half of the war. He resigned in 1943 and was replaced by Karl Donitz. He was sentenced to life in prison at the Nuremberg trials, but was released early due to failing health. Raeder is also well known for dismissing Reinhard Heydrich from the Reichsmarine in April 1931 for conduct unbecoming an officer and a gentleman. Life before becoming the Grand Admiral. Early years. Raeder was born in Wandsbek in the Prussian province of Schleswig-Holstein in the German Empire. His father was a headmaster, who was a teacher, and the father was noted for his marked authoritarian views, and who impressed upon his son the values of hard work, thrift, faith and obedience, all values that Raeder was to preach throughout his life. Hans Raeder also warned his children that if Germany were to become a democracy, that would be a disaster, as it meant government by men, playing politics, doing what was only best for their petty sectarian interests instead of the nation. Imperial German Navy. Raeder joined the Kaiserliche Marine in 1894 and rapidly rose in rank, becoming Chief of Staff for Franz von Hipper in 1912. From 1901 to 1903 Raeder served on the staff of Prince Heinrich of Prussia, and gained a powerful patron in the process. Raeder's rise up the ranks was due mostly to his intelligence and hard work. Owing to his cold and distant personality, Raeder was a man whom even his friends often admitted to knowing very little about. The dominating figure of the Navy was Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz, the autocratic State Secretary of the Navy. Tirpitz's preferred means of obtaining world power status was through his Risiko theory, where Germany would build a Risiko flotte that would make it too dangerous for Britain to risk a war with Germany, and thereby alter the international balance of power decisively in the Reich's favor. Tirpitz transformed the Navy from the small coastal defense force of 1897 into the mighty high seas fleet of 1914. Raeder was married in 1903 and had 3 children by his first wife. In 1904, Raeder, who spoke fluent Russian, was sent to the Far East as an observer of the Russo-Japanese War. Starting in 1905, Raeder worked in the public relations section of the Navy, where he first met Tirpitz and began his introduction to politics by briefing journalists to run articles promoting the Seemacht ideology and meeting politicians who held seats in the Reichstag in order to convert them to the Seemacht ideology. Working closely with Tirpitz, Raeder was heavily involved in the lobbying the Reichstag to pass the Third Navy Law of 1906, which committed Germany to building all big-gun battleships to compete with the new British dreadnought class in the Anglo-German naval race that had begun early in the 20th century. Raeder was the captain of Kaiser Wilhelm II's private yacht in the years leading up to World War I. In itself, this was not a rewarding post, but often people in this post were quickly promoted afterwards. World War I. Raeder served as Hipper's chief of staff during World War I as well as in combat posts, taking part in the Battle of Doggerbank in 1915 and the Battle of Jutland in 1916. Raeder was later to describe Hipper as an admiral who hated paperwork, and as such, Hipper delegated considerable power to Raeder, who thus enjoyed more power than what his position as chief of staff would suggest. During and after World War I, the German Navy had been divided into 2 factions. One faction led by Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz were avid followers of the teachings of the American historian Alfred Thayer Mahan and believed in building a balanced fleet, centered around the battleship that would, if war came, seek out and win a decisive battle of annihilation against the Royal Navy. Another faction led by Commander Wolfgang Wegner argued that, because of superior British shipbuilding capacity, that Germany could never hope to build a balanced fleet capable of winning the Entscheidungsschlacht, and that as such, the best use of German naval strength was to build a fleet of cruisers and submarines that would wage a Garde course After reading all three of Wegner's papers setting out his ideas, Admiral Hipper decided to submit them to the Admiralty in Berlin, but changed his mind after reading a paper by Raeder attacking the Wegner thesis as flawed. This marked the beginning of a long feud between Raeder and Wegner, with Wegner claiming that his former friend Raeder was jealous of what Wegner insisted were his superior ideas. In May 1916, Raeder played a major role planning a raid by Hipper's battle cruisers that was intended to lure out the British battle cruiser force, which would then being destroyed by the main high seas fleet. This raid became the Battle of Jutland. Raeder played a prominent role and was forced midway in the battle to transfer from SMS Lützow to the SMS Moltke as a result of damage to Hipper's flagship. As Chief of Staff to Admiral Hipper, he was closely involved in a plan of Hipper's for a German battle-cruiser squadron to sail across the Atlantic and sweep through the waters off Canada, down to the West Indies and on to South America to sink the British cruisers operating in those waters, and thereby force the British to redeploy a substantial part of the home fleet to the New World. Though Hipper's plans were rejected as far too risky, it was a major influence on Raeder's later thinking. On 14 October 1918, Raeder received a major promotion when he was appointed deputy to Admiral Paul Benker, the Naval State Secretary. Raeder had doubts about submarines, but he spent the last weeks of the war working to achieve the sheer program of building 450 U-boats. On 28 October 1918 the fleet mutinied. Raeder played a major role in attempting to crush the mutiny. Weimar Republic. In the First World War, Raeder's two younger brothers were both killed in action, and in 1919 his first marriage, which had been under heavy strain due to war-related stresses, ended in divorce. For the puritanical Raeder, the divorce was a huge personal disgrace, and as a result for the rest of his life, he always denied his first marriage. The years 1918–1919 were some of the most troubled in his life. High Seas Fleet mutiny. In the winter of 1918–19. Raeder was closely involved in the efforts of the Naval Officer Corps, strongly backed by the Defense Minister Gustav Noske, a majority Social Democrat with firm law and order views, to disband the Sailors' Councils, established after the mutiny. During this period, Raeder served as the liaison between the Naval Officer Corps and Noske, and it was Raeder who suggested to Noske on the 11th of January 1919 that Adolf von Trotha be appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Navy. Tirepitz's attacks on the Emperor's leadership during the war had caused a split in the officer corps between the followers of the Master and the Kaiser, and Raeder wanted Trotha as the only officer acceptable to both fractions. Noske in turn asked the Navy for volunteers for the Freikorps to crush uprisings from the Communists. The Navy contributed 2 brigades to the Freikorps. The price of the Navy supporting the Freikorps was the continuation of the Navy's state-within-the-state status and the end of attempts to democratize the military. Under the Weimar Republic, the military considered itself Überparteilich, which did not mean political neutrality as implied. The military argued that there were 2 types of politics: Partypolitisch, which was the responsibility of the politicians, and Staatspolitisch, which was the responsibility of the military. Staatspolitisch concerned Germany's eternal interests and their historic mission of winning world power, which was to be pursued regardless of what the politicians or the people wanted. Kapp Putsch. After the war, in 1920, Raeder was involved in the failed Kapp Putsch, where together with almost the entire Naval Officer Corps he declared himself openly for the government of Wolfgang Kapp against the leaders of the Weimar Republic. In the summer of 1920, Raeder married his second wife, by whom he was to have 1 son. Inspector of training. After the failure of the Kapp Putsch, he was marginalized in the Navy, being transferred to the Naval Archives. where for 2 years he played a leading role in the writing of the official history of the Navy in World War I. After this, Raeder continued to rise steadily in the Navy hierarchy, becoming Vice-Admiral in 1925. World War II. Gross Admiral Raeder believed the Navy was unprepared for the start of World War II by at least 5 years. The surface fleet was inadequate to fight the Royal Navy and instead adopted a strategy of convoy raiding. Raeder wanted the Kriegsmarine to play an active part because he feared the budget would be cut after the war. The smaller ships were dispersed around the world in order to force the Royal Navy to disperse their ships to combat them, while the battleships would carry out raids in the North Sea, with a view towards gradually reducing the Royal Navy's strength at home. Raeder was unhappy with the outcome of the Battle of the River Plate and believed that Hans Langsdorff should not have scuttled the ship, but instead sailed out to engage the Royal Navy. Raeder subsequently issued orders that ships were to fight until the last shell and either win or sink with their flag flying. Fleet Commander Hermann Bohm was held responsible and was sacked by Raeder. The Allies were using Norwegian airfields to transfer aircraft to the Finns fighting against the Soviets in the Winter War, as well as mining Norwegian waters, and the Germans were alarmed by these developments. If the Allies were to use Norwegian naval bases or successfully mine Norwegian waters, they could cut off the vital iron ore imports from Sweden and tighten the blockade of Germany. The Allies also had made plans to invade Norway and Sweden in order to cut off the iron ore shipments to Germany. Admiral Rolf Karls, commander of the Kriegsmarine in the Baltic Sea region, proposed the invasion of Norway to Raeder in September 1939. Raeder briefed Hitler on the idea in October, but planning did not begin until December 1939. The operation was in low-priority planning until the Altmark incident, but found a new sense of urgency thereafter. The invasion proved costly for the Kriegsmarine, losing a heavy cruiser, 2 of its 6 light cruisers, 10 of its 20 destroyers and 6 U-boats. In addition, almost all of the other capital ships were damaged and required dockyard repairs. And for a time the German surface fleet had only 3 light cruisers and 4 destroyers operational in the aftermath of the Norwegian campaign. The swift victory over France allowed the Kriegsmarine to base itself in ports on France's west coast. This was strategically important as German ships would no longer have to navigate through the dangerous English Channel in order to return to friendly ports, as well as allow them to range farther out into the Atlantic to attack convoys. With the surrender of France, Raeder saw the opportunity to greatly enhance the Navy's power by confiscating the ships of the French Navy and manning them with his crews. Hitler, however, vetoed this idea, afraid that doing so would push the French Navy to join the Royal Navy. British fears of Raeder's plan resulted in the attack on Mers-el-Bir, where the Royal Navy attacked the French Navy despite being at peace. On the 11th of July 1940, Hitler and Raeder agreed to continue to build the battleships of Plan Z. Raeder also had bases built at Trondheim, Saint-Nazaire and Lorient. At this time, Raeder and other senior officers began submitting memos to invade Shetland, Iceland, the Azores, Iran, Madagascar, Kuwait, Egypt and the Dutch East Indies. In January 1941, the battleships Scharnhorst and Gneisenau were sent on a successful commerce raiding mission in the Atlantic. On the 18th of March, Raeder wanted to start firing on U.S. warships even if unprovoked. He declined to invade the Azores on the grounds of the surface ship losses the previous year. In April 1941, Raeder planned to follow up the success of Operation Berlin with an even larger mission involving 3 battleships and 2 heavy cruisers under the command of Lieutenants, codenamed Operation Rheinebung. The original plan was to have the battleships Gneisenau and Scharnhorst involved in the operation, but Scharnhorst was undergoing heavy repairs to her engines. and Gneisenau had just suffered a damaging torpedo hit days before, which put her out of action for 6 months. In the end, only the Bismarck and Prinz Eugen were sent out on the mission, which ended with Bismarck's sinking. The debacle almost saw the end of using capital ships against merchant shipping. Hitler was not pleased and saw the Bismarck as a poor investment. In late 1941, Raeder planned the Channel Dash, which sent the remaining capital ships to Norway. The plan was to then threaten the Lend-Lease convoys to the Soviet Union, to deter an invasion of Norway and to tie down elements of the home fleet that might otherwise have been used in the Atlantic against the wolf packs. Resignation after a series of failed operations, especially the Battle of the Barents Sea, Raeder was demoted to Admiral Inspector, a ceremonial office. Raeder had intended to inform Hitler of the failure of Barents Sea and explain it as a series of misunderstandings. However, the message was not passed on, and Hitler, believing that the battle was a success, announced a victory. When Hitler learned the truth, he summoned Raeder to explain himself. Upon Raeder's arrival, Hitler scolded him and decided he would scrap the German surface fleet. On 30 January 1943, Raeder resigned. Rest of war. After the 20th July plot, Raeder assured Hitler of his loyalty. As Hitler stated he would stay in Berlin until the end of the war, Raeder followed and was captured by the Soviets, who later took him to Moscow. Following the war, Raeder offered technical assistance regarding Soviet naval affairs. Post-war Nuremberg trial. Raeder was indicted on war crimes in October 1945. He was sentenced to life imprisonment at the Nuremberg trials. He was surprised, as he had expected to be sentenced to death. Whilst in prison, Raeder conducted a feud with Dönitz. There were several campaigns to free Raeder by his wife and German veterans. Due to ill health, Raeder was released on 26 September 1955. Freedom. He wrote his autobiography using ghostwriters. Raeder wanted to continue his feud with Dönitz, but the ghostwriters would not allow it for the benefit of the Navy. Raeder enjoyed attending and speaking at veteran meetings. Erich Raeder died in Kiel on 6 November 1960. His wife died in 1959. He is buried in the Nordfriedhof, Kiel. Dates of rank: Sea Cadet, 13 May 1895. Fähnrich zur See, 25 October 1897. Lieutenant zur See, 1 January 1899. Oberleutnant zur See, 9 April 1900. Kapitänleutnant, 21 March 1905. Korvettenkapitän, 15 April 1911. Fregattenkapitän, 26 April 1917. Kapitän zur See, 29 November 1919. Konteradmiral, 1 August 1922. Vice-Admiral, 10 September 1925. Admiral, 1 October 1928. General Admiral, 20 April 1936. Gross Admiral, 1 April 1939. Awards and decorations: Order of the Double Dragon, 3rd class, 2nd level. China Medal in Steel. Order of the Red Eagle, 4th class. Honorary Knight, 2nd class of the House and Merit Order of Peter Frederick Lewis with Silver Crown. Order of the Red Eagle, 4th class with Crown. Commander's Cross of the Order of Franz Joseph. Commander's Cross of the Order of the Redeemer. Order of St. Stanislaus, 2nd class. Iron Cross, 1st class, 2nd class. Imtiaz Medal in Silver with Swords. Ottoman War Medal. Friedrich August Cross, 1st and 2nd class. Knight's Cross of the Royal House Order of Hohenzollern with Swords. Military Merit Order, 4th class with Swords and Crown. War Commemorative Medal. Military Merit Cross, 3rd class with War Decoration. Honorary Doctorate from the Faculty of Philosophy, University of Kiel. Grand Cross of the Order of Naval Merit. Commander's Cross with Star of the Order of Merit. World War Commemorative Medal with Swords on. Grand Officer of the Order of Saints Maurice and Lazarus. Grand Cross of the Order of Military Merit. Cross of Honor, Order of Merit, First Class, Grand Cross of the Order of the White Rose of Finland, Wehrmacht Long Service Award, First Class, Olympic Games Decoration, First Class, Golden Party Badge, Grand Cross of the Order of Saints Maurice and Lazarus, Order of the Rising Sun, First Class, War Memorial Medal, Golden Medal of Honor of Hamburg, Order of the White Eagle, Grand Cross of the Order of Naval Merit in White, Sudetenland Medal with Prague Castle, Clasp, Memel Medal, Clasp to the Iron Cross First and Second Class, Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross as Gross Admiral and Oberbefehlshaber der Kriegsmarine, Grand Cross of the Order of the Sword, Grand Cross of Order of St. Alexander with Swords, Order of Michael the Brave, First, Second and Third Class, Grand Cross of the Order of the Cross of Liberty, Grand Cross of the Military Order of Savoy, Grand Cross Order of the Crown of Kings of Honor with Swords and other decorations, Merit Grand Cross of the War Ribbon with Swords.